The cafe clock struck 7. Her coffee had long gone cold, and the seat across from her remained empty. Another blind date. Another disappointment. She smiled politely to the waiter, pretending it didn't sting. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy, blurring the city lights into streaks of silver and red. She was about to leave when the bell above the cafe door chimed. A little boy stepped in, no older than 7, dressed in a tiny black coat, water dripping from his hair. He walked straight toward her table, climbed onto the chair across from her, and whispered, almost apologetically, "My daddy's sorry he's late." The air shifted. Every light flickered once, and when she looked toward the window, a tall man in a dark coat was already standing there, his eyes glowing faintly red. "Stay with me until the end." Because what happened that night wasn't a date, it was the beginning of a curse written centuries ago. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. Maya Chen had sworn off dating apps after 3 months of disasters. The guy who showed up drunk, the one who spent 40 minutes explaining cryptocurrency, the one who left when she mentioned she was a kindergarten teacher, because apparently that wasn't ambitious enough. But her sister Rachel had begged her to try one more time, just one more blind date. The profile seemed perfect. Adrian Blackthorne, 32, investment banker, loved classical music and old books. His photos showed a handsome man with dark hair and striking features, though something about his smile seemed almost too perfect. Now she sat alone at Midnight Grounds, the trendy cafe Rachel had chosen because it stayed open late and had the best espresso in downtown Portland. The irony wasn't lost on her. Even the cafe's name seemed to mock her situation. She checked her phone again. 7:15. No messages, no calls, no explanation. Maya had learned to read the signs, the enthusiastic texts that suddenly stopped, the last-minute cancellations, the guys who seemed interested until they actually met her in person. She'd started to wonder if there was something fundamentally wrong with her, some invisible flaw that drove people away. Her reflection stared back from the cafe window. 28 years old, shoulder-length black hair, brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked exactly like what she was, a teacher who spent her days with 5-year-olds, went to bed early, and had never done anything particularly exciting in her entire life. Maybe that was the problem. The waiter, a college kid with sleeve tattoos and kind eyes, approached her table for the 3rd time. "Another coffee? Or maybe something to eat while you wait?" "No, thank you," Maya said, gathering her purse. "I think I'm done waiting." She left a $5 tip even though she'd only ordered 1 drink. The waiter looked like he understood disappointment too. That's when the little boy walked in. Everything about him was wrong for the setting. While other customers wore casual clothes and carried laptops, he looked like he'd stepped out of a Victorian photograph. His black wool coat was tailored perfectly, with silver buttons that caught the light. His shoes were polished leather, not the sneakers every other kid his age wore. His dark hair was neatly combed, and his pale skin had an almost translucent quality. But it was his eyes that made Maya's breath catch. They were ancient eyes in a child's face, knowing, sad, too old for someone who couldn't be more than 7 years old. He scanned the cafe like he was looking for someone specific. When his gaze landed on her, he smiled. Not the innocent grin of a typical child, but something more complicated. Relief mixed with something that looked almost like recognition. Maya glanced around, expecting to see his parents nearby. The cafe was nearly empty now. A few students hunched over textbooks. A businessman typing on his laptop. An elderly woman reading a paperback novel. No one who looked like they belonged with this strangely formal little boy. He walked directly to her table, his small footsteps silent on the hardwood floor. Without hesitation, he climbed onto the chair across from her, the same chair where Adrian Blackthorne should have been sitting. "My daddy's sorry he's late," the boy said, his voice barely above a whisper. He had a slight accent, something European that Maya couldn't place. He had to take care of something important, but he sent me to make sure you didn't leave. Maya stared at him, her mind struggling to process what was happening. I'm sorry, but I think there's been some mistake. I don't know your father. The boy tilted his head, studying her with those unsettling eyes. You're Maya Chen. You teach kindergarten at Riverside Elementary. You were born on October 13th. You have a scar on your left knee from falling off your bicycle when you were 6. Your favorite color is deep purple, but you tell people it's blue because purple seems too whimsical for a teacher. Ice flooded Maya's veins. She hadn't mentioned any of those details in her dating profile. The scar was barely visible unless you knew where to look. And she'd never told anyone about the purple thing, not even Rachel. How do you know that? She whispered. The boy's expression softened, becoming more genuinely childlike. Daddy knows lots of things. He's been watching you for a while, making sure you're safe. Watching me? Maya's voice rose, causing the businessman to glance over. She lowered it quickly. That's stalking. That's illegal. Not stalking, the boy said earnestly. Protecting. There are dangerous things in this city, Miss Chen. Things that hunt people like you. Daddy makes sure they stay away. Before Maya could ask what he meant by people like you, the lights in the cafe flickered. Not the brief flicker of unstable electricity, but a slow, deliberate dimming, as if something was drawing power from the very air. The temperature dropped noticeably. Maya's breath began to mist, and she pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. The other customers seemed oblivious, continuing their conversations and activities as if nothing had changed. Only the little boy remained unaffected by the cold. If anything, he seemed more comfortable now, settling back in his chair with visible relief. He's here, the boy said simply. Maya turned toward the window, following his gaze. At first she saw nothing unusual, just the rain-slicked street, the blurred neon signs of other businesses, the occasional car passing through puddles. Then she saw him. If he'd materialized from the shadows themselves, the sidewalk directly outside the cafe, as a man stood perfectly still on. He was tall, easily 6'3", with broad shoulders that filled out a long black coat. His dark hair was swept back from a face that belonged in classical sculpture. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that looked like they rarely smiled. But it was his eyes that made Maya's heart skip. Even through the rain-streaked glass, even from 20 feet away, she could see they glowed with a faint red light. Not the red of reflection or trick lighting, but actual luminescence, like coals burning in the darkness. He was staring directly at her. Maya gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. That's your father? Yes, the boy said, and now his voice carried a note of pride. Isn't he magnificent? Magnificent wasn't the word Maya would have chosen. Terrifying fit better. Otherworldly, impossible. The man outside raised his hand, a small gesture of acknowledgement. The cafe lights flickered again, and when they steadied, he was gone. Simply gone, as if he'd never been there at all. Where did he go? Maya breathed. He'll be right in, the boy said. He was just making sure it was safe first. There are rules about entering places uninvited, especially places where mortals gather. Mortals. The word hit Maya like a physical blow. The cafe door opened with its familiar chime, but no one walked through. Instead, the temperature dropped another 10 degrees, and Maya's coffee cup began to frost over. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed and dimmed, casting everything in an amber twilight. Then he was simply there, standing beside their table as if he'd always been there. Up close, he was even more imposing. The black coat was perfectly tailored, expensive fabric that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Beneath it, he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary. His face was a masterpiece of masculine beauty, but there was something fundamentally wrong about it. The skin was too pale, too perfect. No pores, no imperfections, no signs of ever having been touched by sunlight. His lips were full but colorless, and when he smiled, Maya caught a glimpse of teeth that were too white and slightly too sharp, but it was still his eyes that held her captive, red as fresh blood, ancient as winter nights, and fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel exposed, vulnerable, seen in ways she'd never been seen before. "Miss Chen," he said, and his voice was like aged whiskey poured over broken glass. "Thank you for waiting." Maya's hands trembled as she stared up at the impossible man before her. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs felt frozen to the chair. The rational part of her mind insisted this was some elaborate prank, but the primal part, the part that remembered ancient fears, knew better. "I don't understand what's happening," she whispered, Ida's voice barely audible above the sudden silence that had fallen over the cafe. Adrian Blackthorne, if that was really his name, studied her with those burning red eyes. When he moved to pull out the chair beside his son, it was with fluid grace that defied natural movement. No human moved like that, like liquid shadow given form. "Understanding will come," he said, settling into the chair with impossible elegance. "For now, introductions are sufficient. This is my son, Nicholas." The little boy smiled at Maya, and she noticed his teeth were perfectly straight and white, but the canines were just slightly too pointed. "Hello, Miss Chen. I've been wanting to meet you for a very long time." "How long?" Maya asked, then immediately regretted the question. She wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days, Nicholas said without hesitation. "Ever since you started walking home past the old cemetery on Elm Street, that's when Daddy first noticed you." A chill that had nothing to do with the supernatural cold crept up Maya's spine. She did walk past Elmwood Cemetery, but only because it was a shortcut to her apartment. The wrought iron gates and weathered headstones had never bothered her before. Now she wondered what else might have been watching her from those shadows. "You've been following me," she said, her teacher voice kicking in despite her fear. It was the same tone she used when catching students misbehaving. Adrian's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Following implies pursuit with intent to harm. I prefer the term observing. You have a habit of walking alone at night in areas where you shouldn't. Someone needed to ensure your safety." "Safety from what?" "From others like me who don't share my particular moral constraints." The words hit Maya like ice water. Others like him, which meant he wasn't human, and there were more of them out there. The fairy tales she'd read to her kindergartners suddenly seemed less fantastical and more like warnings. Nicholas reached across the table and patted her hand with his small, cold fingers. "Don't be scared, Miss Chen. Daddy's one of the good ones. He only feeds on bad people." "Nicholas!" Adrian's voice carried a warning. "What?" She was going to figure it out anyway. Humans aren't completely stupid. Maya pulled her hand back, staring at the pale little boy who spoke about feeding like he was discussing the weather. "Feeds on what?" "Blood, obviously," Nicholas said matter-of-factly. "We're vampires, Miss Chen. Though Daddy prefers the term nightwalker because he thinks vampire sounds too dramatic." The word hung in the air between them like a blade. Vampire. Of course. The pale skin, the red eyes, the impossible movement, the way the lights dimmed in their presence. All the pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. Maya's chair scraped against the floor as she pushed back from the table. "I need to leave. Right now. Sit down." Adrian's voice carried an odd resonance that seemed to echo inside her skull. Maya felt her body respond back into the chair against her will. The compd before her mind could protest. Settling Gulshan lasted only a moment before something inside her pushed back, shattering whatever hold he'd tried to establish. Adrian's eyes widened in surprise. "Fascinating. What just happened?" Maya demanded, her heart racing. "You resisted compulsion," Nicholas said, leaning forward with excitement. "Nobody resists Daddy's compulsion. Not even other vampires. Most humans," Adrian said slowly, studying Maya with renewed interest, "have minds like unlocked doors. A suggestion, a gentle push, and they open easily. But yours," he tilted his head, "yours is different, warded." "Warded against what?" Supernatural influence. It's incredibly rare. Perhaps 1 in 10,000 humans are born with natural mental barriers. Adrian's gaze intensified, which explains why you were targeted. Maya's blood ran cold. Targeted by who? Before Adrian could answer, the temperature in the cafe plummeted even further. The few remaining customers began gathering their things and leaving, suddenly remembering urgent appointments or early mornings. Within minutes, Maya, Adrian, and Nicholas were alone, except for the tattooed waiter, who seemed oddly unaffected by the supernatural atmosphere. "Marcus," Adrian called to the waiter without turning around. The young man approached their table, and Maya saw his eyes held the same red gleam as Adrian's, though much fainter. "The consortium sent scouts," Marcus said quietly. "3 of them, circling the block. They know she's here." Nicholas grabbed Maya's hand again, his small fingers surprisingly strong. "It's going to be okay. Daddy won't let them hurt you." "Who's the consortium?" Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted another terrifying answer. "Vampires who view humans as livestock," Adrian said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "They run feeding operations throughout the city. Clean, efficient, profitable. They prefer victims who won't be missed, but occasionally they make exceptions for those with special qualities." "Special qualities like natural mental barriers," Maya said, understanding dawning. "Exactly. Your resistance to compulsion makes you valuable to them. They could study you, learn how to break down such defenses in others, or they could simply drain you slowly, savoring the challenge." Maya's hands shook as she reached for her purse. "I need to call the police." "The police can't help you," Nicholas said sadly. "Some of them work for the consortium anyway. They make people disappear from the reports." "Then what am I supposed to do?" Maya's voice cracked with desperation. "Hide for the rest of my life?" Adrian leaned forward, his red eyes burning with intensity. "You accept my protection. Formally, according to the old laws. What does that mean? It means you become part of my household, under my direct guardianship. Any vampire who harms you would answer to me personally." Maya stared at him. "You want me to move in with you?" "I want you to survive," Adrian said simply. "The consortium has been planning this for weeks. They know your schedule, your habits, your apartment building. They've been waiting for the right moment to take you." "How do you know all this?" Adrian's smile was sharp and cold. "Because I've been hunting them for the last month. 3 consortium vampires have already met unfortunate ends while following you home." The casual way he spoke about killing made Maya's stomach turn. But she remembered walking alone at night, the feeling of being watched, the strange noises that made her walk faster. Had he really been protecting her all this time? "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you protect a stranger?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his ancient eyes studying her face. "Because," he said finally, "you remind me of someone I lost a very long time ago, someone I failed to protect." Nicholas squeezed her hand. "Daddy's been alone for 60 years. Ever since Mama died." "Nicholas," Adrian warned again. "She deserves to know," the boy said stubbornly. "If she's going to trust us, she needs to understand." Maya looked between father and son, seeing the pain that flickered across Adrian's perfect features. Whatever had happened 60 years ago still haunted him. "I don't have a choice, do I?" she said quietly. "There's always a choice," Adrian replied. "But some choices lead to longer lives than others." Outside, Maya heard the sound of car doors slamming. Through the rain-streaked windows, she could see dark figures moving in the shadows across the street. "They're here," Marcus said from behind the counter. Nicholas's grip on her hand tightened. "Daddy?" Adrian stood with that fluid, inhuman grace, his long coat billowing around him. "Maya Chen," he said formally, "I offer you the protection of House Blackthorn. Do you accept?" Maya looked at the little boy with ancient eyes, at the vampire who claimed to hunt monsters, at the impossible choice that would change everything. Through the window, she could see, red eyes glowing in the darkness, circling closer. "Yes," she whispered, "I accept." The moment the words left her lips, the air around them shimmered like heat waves. Maya felt something settle over her, invisible but tangible, like a second skin made of shadows and starlight. Adrian smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. Then let's go home. The transformation began the moment they stepped outside. Maya had expected a car, maybe a taxi. What she found instead was a sleek black sedan that purred like a living thing, its engine making no sound she'd ever heard before. The driver wore dark glasses despite the night hour and nodded respectfully when Adrian approached. "My estate is 20 minutes outside the city," Adrian said, holding the door open for her. "You'll be safe there while we make more permanent arrangements." Nicholas bounced into the back seat with childlike enthusiasm that seemed at odds with everything Maya had learned about him. "Wait until you see the library, Miss Chen. It has books older than most countries." Maya hesitated at the car door. Once she got in, there would be no going back to her normal life. No more grading papers in her tiny apartment. No more Sunday morning coffee runs. No more pretending that the world was exactly what it seemed. But behind them, she could hear footsteps on wet pavement. Slow, deliberate steps that seemed to echo from multiple directions at once. "They're closing in," Marcus called from the cafe doorway. Maya slid into the back seat. The interior smelled like leather and something else. Something ancient and indefinable. Adrian settled beside her with that same impossible grace, while Nicholas claimed the space between them like he'd done it 1,000 times before. As they pulled away from the curb, Maya caught glimpses of the figures that had been stalking her, pale faces in expensive clothes, moving with predatory purpose. Their eyes reflected the streetlights like animals caught in headlights, and when one of them smiled, she saw fangs that made Adrian seem almost human by comparison. "The consortium doesn't give up easily," Adrian said, noticing her backward glance. "They'll regroup and try again. But not tonight." "How long have they been after me?" Maya asked. "Longer than you know. They've been watching you for months, waiting for the right opportunity. Your resistance to compulsion makes you incredibly valuable to their research division." Nicholas pressed his face against the window, watching the city lights blur past. "They do terrible things to people like you. They keep them in laboratories and run experiments. Daddy shut down 3 of their facilities last year." "Nicholas," Adrian's voice held a gentle warning. "She should know what she escaped," the boy said stubbornly. "Humans think they're the only intelligent species on the planet. They have no idea what's really out there." Maya stared out at the familiar streets of Portland, seeing them with new eyes. How many of those late-night pedestrians were actually human? How many of the businesses stayed open all night for customers who couldn't venture out during daylight hours? "Is everyone in on this secret except me?" she asked. "Most humans live their entire lives without knowing," Adrian said. "It's better that way. Safer. Those who do learn usually don't survive long enough to tell anyone else." The sedan turned onto a winding road that led away from the city lights. Trees pressed close on both sides, their branches creating a tunnel of darkness that seemed to swallow the headlight beams. Maya had never been this far outside Portland, had never realized how quickly civilization gave way to wilderness. "How old are you really?" she asked Adrian. "Old enough to remember when this entire valley was inhabited by indigenous tribes who understood the balance between the living and the undead," he said. "Before settlers arrived and disrupted everything with their churches and their certainties." "That doesn't answer my question." Adrian smiled, and in the dim light of the car, his fangs were more visible. "I was born in 1847, turned in 1863 during the Civil War. I've been 16 years old physically for more than a century and a half." Maya's mind struggled with the math. "But Nicholas calls you Daddy." "Nicholas was turned when he was 7, Adrian said quietly. His actual father was a consortium researcher who used his own son as a test subject. I found Nicholas in one of their facilities and eliminated everyone responsible." The casual way he spoke about elimination made Maya shiver. But when she looked at Nicholas, she saw only a little boy who'd been through unimaginable trauma. Whatever Adrian had done to those researchers, they'd probably deserved it. "So he's not really your son," Maya said. "He is in every way that matters," Adrian replied firmly. "We've been family for 40 years. Nicholas leaned against Adrian's side with the casual affection of any child with their parent. It was such a normal gesture that Maya almost forgot they were both undead creatures who survived by drinking blood. The estate appeared suddenly through the trees, lit by wrought iron lampposts that cast pools of warm light across manicured grounds. The house itself was massive, a Victorian mansion with Gothic touches that seemed to emerge from a fairy tale. Multiple towers and gabled roofs created a skyline against the cloudy night, and every window glowed with golden light. "It's beautiful," Maya breathed. "It's home," Nicholas said simply. "Wait until you see the inside." The car pulled up to a circular driveway, and Adrian helped Maya out with old-fashioned courtesy. Up close, the mansion was even more impressive. Ivy climbed the stone walls, and gargoyles perched on the corners of the roof, their eyes seeming to track movement in the shadows below. "Are those decorative?" Maya asked, pointing at the gargoyles. "Not exactly," Adrian said. "They're early warning systems, very effective against uninvited guests." Before Maya could ask what that meant, the front door opened. A woman emerged, tall and elegant with silver hair swept into a perfect chignon. She wore a midnight blue dress that looked like it belonged in a museum, and when she smiled, Maya caught the glint of fangs. "Adrian, thank goodness you're back," the woman said in a voice like aged wine. "The council has been calling all evening." "This is Eleanor," Adrian said to Maya. "She manages the household and keeps me from making catastrophic decisions." Eleanor's gaze settled on Maya with keen intelligence. "So this is the young woman who's caused such a stir, the one who resists compulsion." "Among other things," Adrian said. "Eleanor, Maya will be staying with us indefinitely. Please prepare the rose room." "Of course." Eleanor's smile seemed genuine. "Welcome to Blackthorn House, dear. I do hope you'll be comfortable here." Nicholas grabbed Maya's hand and pulled her toward the front door. "Come on. I want to show you everything before the other council members arrive." "Other council members?" Maya looked back at Adrian. "The supernatural community has its own governing body," he explained. "News of your abilities has reached them. They'll want to meet you personally." "Tonight? Power doesn't keep normal business hours," Eleanor said wryly. "Come along, dear. Let's get you settled before the political maneuvering begins." The interior of the mansion was even more stunning than the exterior. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns on polished marble floors, and oil paintings in gilded frames lined the walls. A sweeping staircase curved up to the second floor, its banister carved with intricate designs that seemed to move in Maya's peripheral vision. "The house has been in my family for generations," Adrian said, noticing her amazement. "Each owner has added their own touches." "Your human family or your vampire family?" Maya asked. "Both. I inherited it from my mortal father, and I've shared it with my chosen family ever since." Nicholas led them through a series of rooms that seemed designed for entertaining royalty. A ballroom with a floor so polished it reflected like water. A library with shelves that stretched 3 stories high, connected by rolling ladders and narrow catwalks. A conservatory filled with plants that bloomed despite the late hour, their flowers glowing with soft bioluminescence. "Those are night orchids," Nicholas explained when he saw Maya staring. "They only bloom for vampires. Human eyes usually can't see the light, but Maya could see it perfectly. The flowers pulsed with gentle radiance, creating patterns that seemed almost like communication. She reached out to touch one, and it brightened at her approach. Adrian and Eleanor exchanged a meaningful look. "Interesting," Eleanor murmured. "Very interesting indeed." They climbed the main staircase to the second floor, where a long hallway was lined with doors. Nicholas pointed out various rooms as they passed. Adrian's study, the music room where he played piano when he couldn't sleep, the art studio where Eleanor painted portraits of family members, both living and dead. "And this is your room," Nicholas announced, throwing open a door near the end of the hall. The Rose Room was aptly named. Everything from the wallpaper to the bedding featured roses in various shades of pink and cream. But it wasn't overwhelming. instead creating a sense of warmth and comfort that Maya hadn't expected in a vampire's mansion. French doors opened onto a balcony that overlooked the gardens, and a fireplace dominated one wall with armchairs arranged invitingly nearby. The bed was a four-poster draped in silk, and Maya noticed that heavy curtains could be drawn to block out any unwanted sunlight. "It's perfect," Maya said honestly. "I'm glad you approve," Eleanor said. "There are clothes in the wardrobe that should fit you. Adrian is quite good at estimating sizes." Maya didn't want to think too hard about how Adrian had acquired that skill. "The bathroom is through there." Nicholas pointed to another door. "And there's a bell pull by the bed if you need anything during the day. Most of us sleep then, but there are human staff members who can help you." "Human staff?" "People who know our secret and choose to work with us rather than against us," Adrian explained. "They're well compensated for their discretion." A soft chime echoed through the house, and Eleanor straightened. "That would be the council arriving. Adrian, you should greet them before they start making themselves at home." "Will I meet them tonight?" Maya asked. "Tomorrow evening," Adrian said. "Tonight you rest. Tomorrow we begin preparing you for a world that's far more complex than you imagined." Nicholas hugged her goodnight with surprising warmth, and Eleanor promised to bring her breakfast in the morning. Adrian lingered in the doorway after they left, his red eyes studying her face. "Are you afraid?" he asked quietly. Maya considered the question seriously. "Terrified," she admitted, "but also curious. A few hours ago, my biggest worry was whether my blind date would show up. Now I'm living in a mansion with vampires, and apparently I have abilities I never knew about. Your life will never be simple again," Adrian warned. "The supernatural world doesn't let people go once they're truly part of it." "Maybe simple was overrated anyway," Maya said. Adrian's smile was small but genuine. "Rest well, Maya Chen. Tomorrow, everything changes." He closed the door with a soft click, leaving Maya alone in the rose room. She walked to the French doors and stepped onto the balcony, looking out over gardens that glowed with the same soft light as the night orchids. In the distance, she could see the lights of Portland, the city where she'd lived her entire life without knowing the truth about what lurked in its shadows. Tomorrow she would start learning about a world that existed alongside the human one, hidden in plain sight. But tonight, for the first time in months, Maya Chen felt completely safe, even if that safety came with fangs. Maya's story reminds us that sometimes the most extraordinary encounters happen when we least expect them. What started as another failed blind date became the doorway to a hidden world where protection comes with fangs and family doesn't always share the same heartbeat. Her journey from lonely teacher to protected ward of House Blackthorn proves that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing trust when everything rational tells you to run. The next time you're sitting alone somewhere, wondering if you're invisible to the world, remember that someone might be watching over you from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to change your life forever.